Guys, keep eating. I'm sure there's some stuff back there. We'll get you a go plate here in a little bit if you need to take some home. But we'll get started and I'll get you out of here on time. 30 minutes ago, I didn't really have a story, and then I come up with two, and I'm not sure which one I want to share with you, but that's my mind. I'll forget the other one before next month. So I'll tell you about a farmer friend of mine that was just out working on his farm, minding his own business, and this big Crown Victoria pulled in the yard, and a fella stepped out and told him he was with the FDA and he was here to do a inspection. The farmer said, "You ain't inspecting my place. I'm just here working, and I don't know who you are. I don't know you from Adam." He said, "Well, I'm with the FDA, and I'm here. I'm telling you I'm going to inspect the farm." He said, "Well, you ain't going to inspect my farm." He said, "I am. I've got a badge." He pulled his coat back and had a big old badge in there, and the farmer didn't know what to say. He said, "You see that badge?" He said, "Yes, sir." He said, "That says I can go where I want to and do what I need to." The farmer said, "Well, if that's what that badge says, you go right ahead." Farmer went on about his business. That fellow went inspecting around the farm there. In just a few minutes, farmer heard the biggest fuss you ever heard in your life, hollering, screaming, "Help me, help me, help me." And the farmer looked up, and here come that inspector running across the pasture. And there's a big black bull behind him with big long horns. And the farmer looked at it and said, "Show him your badge." I don't know how that helped with the old bull.
I don't know either.
If you got the email, it's going to sound a little bit silly, but I told you I was going to talk about coming in and going out. And I ran across this in Kings. I was reading about Solomon, and you know the story about Solomon. He followed behind David, his father, and then God gave him like a wish or anything he wanted, anything he desired. And instead of asking for riches and money and fame, he asked for wisdom, which was kind of not a selfish act of his for himself. So God granted him all this wisdom. And with all the wisdom he had, he said this in 1 Kings chapter 3, verse 7. "O my Lord, my God, you have made your servant king instead of my father David, but I am as a little child. I do not know how to go out or come in." And that just hit me as odd. What kind of verse is that? I don't know how to go out or come in. So I studied a little bit and read some more, and I thought, what does that mean? Is there a certain way a king addresses a crowd or goes in and out of a room? Does he have to be announced? Because I really don't know a lot about kings. But he didn't know, and was there some kind of training that he had missed out on? But being a very wise man, I would think anybody would be able to go in and out of a room. I mean, there's no locks on the doors, no codes or nothing special. But if I read deeper, I look back further in the Old Testament, Numbers 27, 15, 17 says, "Then Moses spoke to the Lord, saying, Let the Lord, the God of the spirits of all flesh, set a man over the congregation, who may go in before them, and who may lead them out and bring them in, so that the congregation of the Lord may not be like sheep which have no shepherd." There's that terming in, lead them in, take them out properly. And then turn a few pages back to Deuteronomy 31:1. "Then Moses went and spoke these words to all of Israel, and he said to them, I am now 120 years old, and I can no longer go out and come in." There's that term again, go out and come in. Joshua 14:11, "As yet I am as strong this day as on the day Moses sent me. Just as my strength was then, so now is my strength for war, both for going in and coming out." That term keeps popping up, and my son Alex gave me a concordance for my birthday. Now, I was afraid he was going to ask me to read it and test me on it next Tuesday. It's about that thick, and the print, if you ain't got a magnifying glass, you can't see it. It's a pretty handy book, but when you go in there and look at how the words are defined and where the root words came from, this was a terminology for war. David was a warrior king. He knew how to lead his group out and bring them in. When the men came in from war, they always went to the temple to give praise for their victory. That would prepare them better to go back out. Solomon was very wise. He recognized he didn't have those traits, so he asked God to help him, show him how to go in and come out. It's necessary. David knew how to go to war. He was a warrior. He was a battler. He conquered lands. Solomon didn't have those same skills. I also found this in the New Testament. John 10, chapter 10, verse 9. Jesus is speaking here. He says, I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved and will go in and out to find pasture. In and out. So it's not just an Old Testament war term. It's New Testament, and it's very relative to what we do today. If you ask me, are we in a war today? Not the same as David and Solomon would have been, but Ephesians 6:12 says, for we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers of the rulers of the darkness. If we're going to be effective in our wrestling with principalities, I think we need to know how to go in and come out. I think that is a lesson that I missed reading through this in previous years. But everybody, I think, would agree that we have our days, bad days, good days. We wrestle with what I would consider to be principalities, but it may be a tough job, maybe some family issues, church problems, car trouble, kids, finance, health issues. Anything can be looked at as a bad day, principalities, darkness, or things that can take over your life and can cause grief. Jesus said he was the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved and be able to go in and out. So the key here is to be saved. Have Jesus in your heart to provide the door to go in and out. In David's day, it was out to war, in to praise. Out to war, into praise. It's a cycle. If we're to combat the devil and his principalities of darkness, today we would come into worship, but we would go out to witness. It takes both worship and witness. And some of these fancy preachers would tell you out to war, into worship. WW is a good way to remember that. Both start with a W. And in today's world, if we go out into worship and out to witness, again, it's two W's. But it is a cycle. If you break the cycle, things will not work. Jesus said he was living water. Living water is moving water. It doesn't get stagnant, doesn't die. So if you just go into worship and don't go out to witness, the water gets stagnant, it gets stale, it doesn't move. So that's why it's important to do both, to witness and to worship. If you just witness and never worship, if you invite me to church here and I come a couple of Sundays, I don't see you, and I say, well, where's Joe? He don't come to church here. I mean, that's not a good witness. If I invite you to church, I want to be at the door and welcome you and thank you for coming. That's what I mean. Out to witness, into worship, it's all makes everything move. Things don't get stale and stagnant. If you remember, it's kind of odd how this stuff kind of rolls together. But back in, I think it was February, we talked about the church of Laodicea and how the Bible considered them to be lukewarm. I think they were doing heavenly praise. Maybe they were going to church. They were happy, fat, but they weren't out. They were holding all their wealth together. They weren't sharing. They weren't going out. They were in the praise, but they weren't going out. They got lukewarm. They got stale. They got stagnant. And the month after that, we talked about moving. That's the way you don't get stagnant. You move. You go out to share God's word with others, and you don't just hold it into yourself. And here in April, I'm talking about in and out, continuing that movement. Now, I guess if I was a real preacher, we'd call that a series. But I ain't a real preacher because we ain't took up no offering. So. But the Bible is a pretty awesome book, how it rolls and carries itself from the Old Testament clear through the New Testament, right on through today, because that is very important for us to come into worship, but to go out to witness. I heard a preacher say one day, he said, all these people come to church to get the promise, but they don't leave the church and go out with the process. They just get the promise and they hang on to it, but you got to go through the process to make the promise work. And that's what I'm talking about. Into worship, out to witness. Let's see what happens sometimes if we just do part of that. If we look back at David, we've talked about him a lot here, but David was a man after God's own heart. He was a true believer in God. He loved God. God had blessed him over and over and over. He had wrote the book of Psalms. He was all about praise and worship. David was all about worship and praise. But he got in trouble. 2 Samuel 11:1 reads like this. It happened in the spring of the year when kings go out to battle. When they go out to battle. David sent Joab and his servants with him, all of Israel, and they destroyed the people of Ammon and besieged Rabbah. But David remained in Jerusalem. David didn't go out. He stayed in. He got stagnant. He got stale. He got complacent. He laid his guard down. You know the story. He went up on top of the rooftop, saw a beautiful girl, got in trouble, broke nearly all 10 of the commandments in the next few days after that. Not good. Had he went out, he was all about coming in. He wrote the book of Psalms. He knew about praise. He knew about worship. He didn't go out. He was stuck coming in. Now, in closing, I know, like I say, we're all in a battle. You may not see it. You probably won't recognize it. I talk sometimes about Satan, and I'm trying to do something next month about that, about the things are not what they appear to be. This AI stuff is really getting dominant. I mean, dominant. It's going to be a force to be reckoned with, and it can be good and can be very, very bad. I want to try to do that, but all that is leading up. Don't get stagnant. You got to move. You got to go in and out. It takes praise and worship. It takes witness. It takes all of it to lead the people. And this group sitting in this building tonight are leaders of the community, leaders of your family, leaders of church. And it is very, very, very important. I didn't know it when I was 30 years ago, but it is very, very important that you are a role model, that I'm a role model. People see you in public, they see you in places, and there's opportunities we could grow. You know, I don't know how many churches, if I asked tonight, I'm sure I can look across here and see 6, 7 churches represented. Our church wasn't full this Sunday. I doubt anybody else's was. We were full Easter, be full Christmas if we have enough fruit baskets, but between the two, we've got to get out and witness. We've got a big building over here on the side to fill up, and we've got to go to work. We can't just sit here and be fat and happy and get complacent. There's perfect examples. David is the best one I can come to mind of what happens if you don't go into worship and go out to witness or go out to war. You can call witness in war. You're fighting a battle. You're fighting a battle of the devil and principalities. They're out there. And you can explain it to your kids or somebody else will. If it happens to be some of this AI stuff I'm looking at, it's not good. It's very, very important, more so than ever, because there's just too much knowledge out there, and all of it's not good. But that's what I got tonight. It's been really quick. I'm early, so next time I'll hold you over to 8:30 or so. I do appreciate all of you coming. Is there anybody that's got anything hard on their heart that they can share with us, need to share, or?
Mama.